everybody. Hey, Rooster Roosters. Welcome to Rooster Rooster Time. I'm the big guy, Scott Ferrara. That's Mike the Grand Poobah Parazzini up at the Excelsior Pub in Albany. One of the hot spots we hit. For any Rooney matches you guys may want to go to in the Albany area, hit up the Excelsior Pub, baby. Mikey, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day for rugby, and let's hope to see Rugby New York bounce back after that terrible loss last week.
Absolutely. And hello to Phil Carter Harris, our buddy Phil Harris, obviously running the Jacks Rangers over there. Congrats on your win against NOLA. They almost crept upon you guys too. So be careful when you're playing NOLA. They like to creep up in those last couple minutes. Susie Q is going to be around here. Can't wait to say hi to Susie. It's funny. So the weather right now, it is rainy. The rain's supposed to stop. Winds are actually negligible and starting to get hot and humid. I'm starting to sweat a little bit, actually, in my stuff. So I just imagine, guys, how the ball is going to react to being in the hands, things like that. But before we get into our actual analysis, Mike, can you hit him with the rosters here?
Yes, I can, and this is courtesy of Doug Coyle and DJ Coyle Rugby. Hold on, here we go. So starting for Old Glory, you got Kyle Stewart at 1, Pseudo Gratis at 2, Jake Ilnicki at 3, Tivada Nakwali at 4, Stan South at 5, Corey Daniel at 6, and Don Bailey at 7. And Luke Campbell at 8. Danny Tusitala is captain at 9. Mike Dabulas at 10. Penny Lasaqua at 11. Junior Soau at 12. 13 is William Talatiana. 14 is Doug Frazier. And 15 is Renato Robert Tenanan. And then for your bench, you got Robert Remiscu. Don't know who that guy is. Jack Carroll, Dante Lepresti, Finton Coleman, Apasani Nakatani, Danny Thomas, Jack Russell, and Threaten Palamau. So that's rounding out Old Glory. I'm sorry, I butchered a ton of names probably. Then for Rugby New York, you got Nick Mayhew, Dylan Foss, and Wilton Nebrolo making out your front three. Nate Brakely, captain, and Charlie Hewitt are your locks. Will Tucker, Brendan O'Connor, and Ben Benasso are your loose forwards. Connor Buckley, Sam Windsor are your 9-10. 11 is Ed Fidow. 12 is Jason Emery. 13 is Fossey Fuatai, 14 is Andrew Coe, and 15 is Troy Lockyer. And then for our bench, you have Caleb Geiger, Chance Lewski, Zach Talafo, Kara Pryor, Joe Basser, Connor McManus, Andy Ellis, and Quinn Nwadi.
I think everybody's excited to see Butch back on the field as a starter. I'm sure it's been killing him on the inside. We all know Dylan. He wants to be out there. I'm sure if Dylan turns 60, he's going to play in the MLR if he gets a contract. So glad to see him back. Honestly, to be honest, I think he needed the rest. I think we've leaned on him so much in previous seasons. The matches he was given rest in kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a hope. Yeah, you're hoping that maybe he can, you could produce without him. But quite honestly, we just need him there. He is just such an engine of a human being. And, to have him there, especially with, he's solid in lineouts and he's perfect with that, that maul off the lineout. So, having him back there is going to be definitely what we need right now.
And our buddy Brandon Smith, you put up the comment before. Love Brandon. Go check out his shows on YouTube about rugby in the UK. Coming from Wales. I've been on the show before. My buddy Rob the Hammersmith's been on the show before as well. So go check out Brandon Smith Rugby on YouTube. I'm kind of surprised that they're not playing Robert Remiscu, OGs, starting this match. I mean, he's been starting, I think the last 4 matches he started hooker. And, not that I think he left on bad terms, but I think a lot of people, when they're coming back to their old clubs, they have something to prove. They have a little more fire in the belly. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's going to provide that off the bench, but I just think that might be a misstep for OGs in their lineup.
Yeah, there's always you always love to see old Rugby New York players come back. They definitely have that fight. You could see that definitely in that Atlanta game where those old Rugby New York players definitely had that extra fight, that extra bite like Will Leonard did against us. No one likes losing, and no one likes losing against the team that traded you away. So maybe we'll see that off the bench with him. He was an off the bench player for us basically, all last year. Maybe they're hoping that he gives that extra boost off the bench, when it comes down to crunch time. So I'd love to see.
I guess we're going to find out, right? I think right now the best the matchups I want to see OGs in New York. I want to see all the loose forwards against all the loose forwards. I think right now both sides have killer loose forwards, and I think with the wind being negligible, but it getting humid and it staying wet, we're going to see those guys pick and going from the friggin' scrum at any point. I really don't think the Nines are going to be throwing the ball from the scrum.
Yeah. Big guy. I do love good, big guys running, and it's going to be great to see. I'm hoping that we learn from our mistakes, and if the OGs were smart, they definitely capitalized on what they saw last week, which was definitely guys not plugging gaps. It seemed like we were a little too loose around rucks and scrums. Specifically, rucks weren't really having guys at guard dog and in post, and they definitely, Toronto took advantage of that and was, basically picking up, the ball and running right through the center of the ruck. So I'd love to see that happen. Rugby New York taking advantage of that, but OGs would have to be stupid not to be able to take advantage of that.
And listen, you can't just say we're going to come in and crush the OGs. They're winless, but you know what? You never know when they're going to have a fire. You never know when Rudy's going to have a stinker. I mean, last week, in my opinion, was a stinker against a Toronto team that had like 12 guys on injured reserve. And in my opinion, it was an attitude issue and an attitude problem. I think they're going to fix that today against the OGs, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to it as well, DC and their head coach have parted ways. They have a new interim head coach in the likes of Nate Osborne, who was, the gold NOLA Gold head coach who's now coming in. So, new coach, new philosophy, hoping, possibly change stuff up. That always, coaches always want to have, that nice first win to, put up and say, hey, look, I've already started, changing, this team around. So I'm looking to see, OGs come out with a little bit more fire than maybe we've possibly seen from them in this season.
Absolutely. And if you want to look at a closer, I guess, relative to that situation, right? ATL came out, was on fire, and I truly believe that was the players. Scott Lawrence leaving as head coach, kind of leaving the murderless new ownership group. I think the players kind of bonded. They came in the locker room and said, listen, we're going to punch people in the mouth. And this is why they're in the top three. They've been playing great rugby. They had a couple ups and downs recently, but they came back with a big win, in their last game. So, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you might see an OGDC team that's just super fired up for the lack of respect they're getting as a rugby team right now, being at the bottom of the barrel. Honestly, what I'm noticing now is through line-up practice on the other side of the field here is Nick Mayhew is getting the ball a lot on what the big guy used to run as play number 5. So, the prop's going to be set up in front of the hooker, and then all of a sudden they're going to step into the lane and get that ball, and the hooker's going to fire it right at him. And I think Nick scored his first try with us on that similar play against, I don't think it was Houston. Can't remember right now who it was against. But, he scored on a similar play that way. And
was it Dallas?
Might have been Dallas. I think you're right. And these conditions are conducive to that good old play number 5, which is something I
I'd love to see a little trickery. We've seen they have that, ability. All I can remember is, Quinn Nwadi's, introduction basically to the MLR with that beautiful trick play where, comes off, the line out, everyone thinks maul, and then, Ben Bonasso, I believe, dished it to him as he's, running down the line. No one's there, maybe, a little trickery, a little, trick plays, stuff like that. A little speed where, maybe it's not expected. That's something that I think we've seen that we haven't seen. It's been lacking this season. Definitely we want to see going forward.
And I think absolutely. And I think what you're talking about really has to do with the centers. And I don't think it's on the players, because I think Marty Veal and Marty Bork are pushing them to this play style where last year with Will Leonard and this year, obviously on ATL, he's a crashing center. He's not really going to make the step, or he's not going to loop out, a looping pass on a skip pass. We have guys who have the attributes to do that. I think right now you get back to basics and you have those centers just crash the line, because we know OGs have opened up big gaps before in their defensive line. So I think this is one of those times you don't screw around and you run straight at them.
I think the key today, though, is definitely going to be defense. Looking at how OGs play, they play pretty loose sometimes where, they end up giving up loose passes, balls flying out of rucks in weird angles and stuff like that. and teams have been able to score against them, not purely based on their offensive capability, but purely on the fact that, they're at the right place, the right time, they make the right tackle, they make the right intercept. I'm hoping to see, Andrew Coe with maybe, two or three possible intercepts right now.
Absolutely.
This would definitely be the team to do that on. And so I'm hoping, if we get our defense settled, we don't let that loose crap happen around the rucks, force them to push it out to the backs, and we can intercept or force an error amongst the backs. That's where we'll be able to capitalize.
Now, one of the things we did last year, which I don't think is going to be as effective this year, is last year Danny Tusitala getting his first couple starts against us, we would counter ruck at a certain time. Now, that wasn't just to try and get the ball. I honestly believe they were counter rucking to try and change up Danny Tusitala's rhythm as he was getting the ball out of the breakdown and firing it out. And I think that worked in both matches against OGs last year. And I think you saw that as the ball out of the breakdown was very slow. Our defense is coming up to the game line, but we were making our tackle. That's the difference. We did the same thing against Toronto. Toronto was a little slow out of the ruck. We were coming up past the game line on defense, on sides, but we weren't completing the tackles. We have to get back to completing those one-and-done tackles.
Yeah, that was killer last week. Just looking at those high tackles, those coming up around the chest, it made me want to cry. Just watching that, we got to get low, make sure don't go for the ball, just get low, get that tackle,
exactly,
make it solid, make the tackle, and hope that maybe a teammate comes there and poaches it. But I think the key and thing number one is going to have to be making sure that we make those tackles.
Exactly. Complete the tackles. And we've seen it before, guys undersized, Jason Emery coming up against props and loose forwards and making the tackle, dropping the guy. And then, yes, are we poaching the ball? Not necessarily, but we're stopping their momentum, and then we're stopping them from exceeding past the game line. So, again, we just have to – it's not even make the tackle. It's complete the tackle without any help.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah, I think it's that time.
Did you want to do scores? All right.
I think it's that time.
So, in my Super Brew pick, I have New York by 7. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think, Old Glory's got a lot to prove, especially new coach. They don't want to go winless this entire season. Rugby New York a little sloppy last week. Hopefully, clean it up. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think it could possibly be.
I mean, we talked about it last week, and it's been like a couple weeks where the sloppy handling errors. I think we could tighten that up this week. I don't remember my Super Brew pick. I think when I was looking at the weather and saw it was going to be rain, I think I said by 5. But I think I'm going to go with you. I think it's going to be converted. I think it's going to be by 7. So don't quote me on my score on Super Brew, because obviously I can't change it while I'm doing the show with you guys. But yeah, haven't heard anything from our buddy Jason Zimmerman. I believe he's supposed to be at the match today, so he's probably running around here. A couple streets are closed down due to some street fairs, so people are kind of moving all around to try and get parking. But if you are at the match, come see me, come take a picture, come say hi. I have these nice Rugby New York supporter stickers I'm handing out. Come get one. I'm going to try and maybe do like a magnet for cars at some point. See, gauge some interest. Let me know if you guys, that's something you want. Something just for us. I can put the Rooster Boosters logo on it if you want. Whatever you guys want to do, hit us up with some details. But honestly, I'm very excited for this match. They got the big weapons out here on both sides. It's going to be a bone cruncher. I love those types of matches. But I'm the big guy, Scott Ferrara. That's Mike the Grand Poobah Parazzini. And enjoy the game, Rooster Boosters. We'll see you later.
Go Rugby New York.